Welcome to the Burgundy Gold Knuckleheads podcast. As always, sitting right over there, you know who it is. It's my main man, Reggie. What's up, Reg?
Ken, what's happening, man? What's going on?
Oh man, just you know, dealing with free agent time, which coincides with spring break here in my neck of the woods, and it's trying to keep up. It's trying to keep up with all the free agency moves while I'm trying to enjoy some family time. And it was a tough balance. I got a couple crooked looks from family members. You know, when I'm getting all these alerts of this person and that person.
Well, a lot has changed since the last time we were together doing one of our beloved podcasts, man. And
Yeah.
free agency started, and man,
Yeah,
dude,
hold on tight, right? It's a
yeah,
whirlwind,
I don't think I've ever seen not just free agency for the Washington to be this way. I don't recall a team hitting free agency the way that we have done free agency. Um, it's been interesting, man. It's been interesting when you consider the uh, number of people we have signed
right?
compared to other teams, and just every time you turn around, man, we're dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, I'm getting an alert from ESPN,
Yep,
and I look over and I see the logo, and it's like, what's happening, right?
right.
And it's been fun to say the least, man. If I'm not, to be quite honest, and yeah, a lot is happening, man, with Dan Quinn and Adam Peters, and,
Yep.
and let's not forget Martin Mayhew, man. Right? And I know Martin's still on the staff, and some people aren't happy about that, but man, them boys are cooking. Them boys are
Yeah,
cooking.
and the reason because with and I guess you're getting into it, or you brought up the name, but I'll bring into it. It's not just Martin Mayhew; it was the whole scouting department are the same people, right? So the same scouts that did good or bad. Now, I'm not saying they were making decisions, the ultimate decisions, but the same scouts that worked for Ron and Del Rio and Turner slash EB are the same ones scouting for Adam Peters and Dan Quinn. So I was going to bring that up in a little while. Is
But hang
that's
on
my
though.
that is a little bit of my concern
So your concern is that the same scouting department? What?
to
What?
a, to a, to a degree because the scouting department isn't just saying, oh, he's fast and he's slow, right? They're giving their advice on who, who the players are, who's rising, who's falling, what their strengths and weaknesses are. Ultimately, it's going to be Adam Peters with input from Dan Quinn and Kingsbury on who fits the system and all that. There's more conversations, but the core evaluators turn around and hand all the information. It's like you or I getting ready to do a speech or a presentation, but the same people that wrote the speeches for the previous people that got fired are writing the speeches for you and I. We're just standing up and giving a new presentation with the same information. That's my.
Okay,
I'm not saying it's happening. I'm saying that's my
yeah.
concern.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those that are just listening and streaming, you can't see the shock on my face. For those on YouTube, you got to understand. This is kind of like that curveball, that breaking news, that alert. I have no idea what my partner Ken is talking about here. This is are you're concerned about the same scouting department? Ken, let me say something.
How many?
Yeah,
Hold on. How many misses? I'll make it a shorter list. How many hits have we had in the last 4 years? Because there's
Ken,
been a hell of a lot of misses.
okay, so let me say it.
And we're talking first round misses, second round misses, third round misses. Where they hit was, occasionally at a 5, at a 7, at a 4, but their ones, twos, and threes were swing and miss, baby. They were, you
Man,
know,
what are you? Listen, man, listen. Okay, I'm gonna explain this, Ken. And I know you know a lot about football, so I'm shocked. I'm baffled by this. Okay, the scouting department just does the scouting on the players. Okay,
Right.
so let's take this as an example. You're Ron Rivera. I'm Dan Quinn. I just got a tan. Okay,
What's up, Dan?
for the sake of this example,
I guess
you're
if
Ron
I'm
Rivera.
Ron Rivera, I got a tan too.
Yeah, a little bit. So here's my thing, but I'm the one with the big tan here.
Okay.
If the scouting department comes to both of us with this player, we have the final say as coaches and in case the GM. You may look at the player and go, yeah, but I don't like the cons,
I don't disagree.
right? And you may have a opinion about said player, and you go, you know what? I don't think he's going to be good for me. Me, as Dan Quinn, might look at that guy and go, that's exactly what I'm looking for. It doesn't matter what the scouting report says. It's a matter of how you and I perceive and view said player and whether or not he's part of our plan. Because it is very clear that Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, and whoever else is involved in player selection has a plan based on the types of players that they're looking at. So it doesn't matter that the scouting department is the same because they probably brought those same reports to Ron Rivera. And Martin Mayhew, even as an example. But Ron, as we know, had final say. And this was probably part of the problem with the coach centric. There's no checks and balance with Ron. Although he had, quote unquote, that setup with the Martins, Martin Mayhew and Martin Herney. But at the end of the day, Ron had final say. And apparently Ron picked the wrong guys that the scouting department brought to him. But that's not an indictment on the scouting department. That's an indictment on Ron and the GM Ron.
I don't disagree. Right. Let me just
Sounds
state,
like you do.
I don't disagree with anything necessarily that you're saying. I'm just saying you can blame Ron or you can blame the scouting department.
I'm blaming Ron. Ron picked the players.
Or a combination, right?
No.
Reggie, how you scout a player and how I scout a player, I'm scouting for Commanders and you're scouting for whoever, the Bears. We may look at the player and write up a different scouting report on that player.
That's fair.
Both of our reports go to our GMs and coaches, and they are going to look at it, evaluate it off of that. They're probably, if it's a higher profile, they're going to spend even more time looking at the film to see whether they see what you see or what I see, but they're going to rely heavily on our scouting reports.
So that's fair. That's fair. But hey, but that's probably more prevalent.
So you're assuming that the scouting report, that the scouts got it right all the time, and the disconnect was Ron Rivera and whatever.
Nope, I'm not assuming that. What I'm saying is the scouting report, number one, is just part of the evaluation.
Correct.
You still have the football people, which is Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, and even your position coaches, who all probably look at these players and give input. So the scouting report is just part of it. Where I will give you where the scouting report probably has more credence is coming out of the college game, because you got your regional scouts and you're trying to evaluate these players in their situation. At the pro level, there's plenty of tape on all of these free agents, right? And this is where the position coaches, head coach, GM can look at film and see, and oh, by the way, what did the scout say?
There's tons of film. There's just as much film at the college level.
Yeah, but
every game was recorded. They show just like they do in the NFL, where you have the all 22. They have the exact same thing for college, and
absolutely,
and they measure them up. They're running sprints. They do the combine. They have probably just as much. Now, they don't have the NFL experience that they can look at, but they do have all kinds of game film and knowing what talent of the teams that play Alabama versus the teams that play whatever XYZ East West school.
Absolutely.
In a different talent level.
I don't disagree with that, but at the college level, you're trying to project how this player is going to be at the NFL level. But when it comes to the free agent side of it, you already seen the guy at the NFL, so you know what he can and cannot do. So the evaluation is a little bit different. You're trying to project what that guy can do. So the scouting report, I think, is a little more, to your point, carries a lot more weight from your scouting department at the collegiate level than it does at the pro level.
And that could very well be true. I'm not. There's probably a lot of truth in your last statement there. But I'm just pointing out this is the same scouting department. You know, these coaches don't know what is it, 53 times 32 teams. They don't know all those players, right? They're scouting and they're looking and they're doing their due diligence. My only thing is I'm pointing out is we have loved the fact that it's been new ownership, new GM, new head coach, new defensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator, new everything, for the same scouting department. I'm just throwing that out there.
Ken, they've been scouting these guys since last year, right? They know, like, they already know.
We didn't have time to scout the scouts.
Okay, hang on. But they probably already know who the free agents are for 2025.
Oh, of course, you just look at contracts.
Okay. So they've already been scouting these guys, right? And that's why you have your personnel department and you have your scouts, right? I know they're all probably under the same umbrella, but you have your personnel department and then you have your collegiate scouts. So they're totally two different departments, man. Come on.
All right. Well, we're going to move on. We're going to move on from that. That was long enough. I was just, like I said, I was just throwing up waving a little flag. It wasn't even a red flag. It's like it's a yellow flag.
Man, come on, man. If you sit at the table, I have to ask you to leave because you talking crazy over here.
That would never happen. That would never happen.
I be like,
but between re-signing our own players and the new players that we got on free agency, I'm counting 17 players, I think, at the moment, as well as one player move that was not related. Was not related to free agency.
A big one. A big one, Ken.
Yeah, that I don't know how it's a little bit of a surprise, but I don't know that it's that big. For those that are, by the time you see or hear this, your news will probably already be out if you haven't already heard. But Sam Howell, has our starting quarterback for last year, has been traded to Seattle Seahawks. Washington, they got something for him, but they didn't get a ton for him. What they did is they swapped picks. Washington gets a third, but gives up a fourth for this coming year. They get Seattle's fifth, or they give up a sixth. So if you do the math,
we didn't give up a sixth.
Was it a fifth and a sixth?
Oh, they gave up. They gave Sam and a fourth, and we got their third and fifth.
I thought we gave up our sixth, our fourth and sixth.
Hell no. We gave the player now. Come on.
I understand.
Can be greedy, Seattle.
I think you're wrong there, Reggie.
Okay. But here's the deal.
Go ahead and talk while I look at it. Go ahead.
Okay, here's the deal. Here's the thing what's cool about this, right? I think it's blatantly obvious to most people anyway, but if you had any inkling or any little bit of doubt about what we were going to do with the number 2 pick, there's no doubt now. We have Marcus Mariota, and you know they're going to go and get a quarterback at number 2.
Right.
There's still a slim possibility that they trade for one, but I think this is where they're going to draft at number 2. What I like about the move with Sam Howell is people who had a problem with Sam Howell being a 5th-round draft pick, Sam Howell has given us a 3rd-round pick. He netted we netted 2 rounds.
Well, hold on. Just like I said, I was correct. They get Sam Howell. We get this year's Seattle's 3rd, and we get Seattle's 5th. Say Washington again, right? Seattle gets Howell, a 4th-round pick, and a 6th-round pick. So we move up 1 for each round. So we're moving up 25 to 27 spots on 2 rounds and giving up Howell.
Okay. Well, still.
But still. So
Sam Howell's 5th-round draft pick was turned into a 3rd-round pick. in this year's draft.
No, I
Right,
wouldn't go
right.
that far. I wouldn't go that far.
What you
You're
mean
giving
you
up
wouldn't go
a
that
fourth.
far?
You're getting a third, but you're giving up a fourth.
Ken, you telling me, you trying to convince me that picking in the fourth is no different than picking in the third? Come on, man.
You're getting a third, but you're giving up a fourth. So it's not just a straight third.
What
It's
is wrong with you? What
I'm
is
not saying it's
going
not
on with you?
better. I'm not saying it's not better. What they did
Then-
was they took their fourth round pick and they moved up about 25 spots. That's all that they did. That's good.
25. That's 25 players.
That's good. I'm not saying that it's not bad, but it's not a straight third round pick because you're giving up your fourth round pick.
Oh my Skin. Sam Howell was a 5th round pick. A player you drafted in the 5th round,
Yeah.
you turned him into a 3rd round pick.
If that's how you want to look at it.
It we went from having a single 3rd round pick to now we got 2.
Nope, you're wrong. We got 3. We got we have 3 third round picks at this moment. We have ours, we have Seattle Seahawks, and we have San Francisco 49ers for Chase Young.
Okay, there you go. You're right. I stand corrected.
Man,
either way, this conversation is focused on Sam Howell generating an additional 3rd round pick for us.
I'll let it go like that.
I don't know what the whole we didn't, we got a 4th and all, we gave up a 4th. That's part of the deal. But we were able to garner an additional 3rd round pick for one reason, because of the player that was drafted last year in the 5th round, who started for us
2 years ago.
and he was able to be converted, and a team traded to us a 3rd round. Did we lose a 4th round pick? Of course we did. But Sam Howell's ability, look at New England. New England drafted a quarterback, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Mac Jones was a 1st round pick.
Yes.
They got a 6th round pick for him, Ken.
Right.
A guy they drafted in the 1st round, they netted a 6th round pick. We drafted a guy in the 5th, and he netted us a 3rd round pick.
We did. I'm sorry. I'm letting you say it, but I got to keep on fighting. We didn't just get a 3rd. We swapped picks. You didn't just pick up. Why don't you could say we picked up? Why don't you say we picked up a 3rd and a 5th?
Because I don't give 2 shits about the 5th pick.
Last time you had a 5th, you picked up Sam Howell with it.
And guess what? It benefited us. But at the end of the day, people aren't usually screaming about 5th round picks. Usually your 1st, 2nd, and 3rd pick. If you get a guy that can perform at the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round, hey, that's gravy on top. But the guys who get picked 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, those are the guys that you generally are counting on to be your productive players. If you can get that guy out of the 4th, 5th, and 6th, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, and he can be productive, a la the guys that was in Seattle as an example. I'm drawing a blank on all their names that was in the Legion of Boom. Those guys are all late round picks, all the better. Which is why I think it's great that Adam Peters and these guys got these draft picks, because I think we're all hoping that they would turn these picks into some great players. George Kittle, I think, was a 5th round pick. Right. But even San Francisco in their wildest dream didn't think that George Kittle would be an all-pro tight end. So that's just gravy on top, right?
Sure.
But the fact that Sam has been able to allow us, however you want to word it, to get a third round pick, man, this is great. I love it.
We moved from a 4th to a 3rd. We didn't get a 3rd. Look, Seattle would not have made the deal to just give up a 3rd round pick. They wouldn't do it. Clearly, they didn't do it. They said, we'll slide a few spots, but we're not just giving up a straight pick. And I'm sorry you don't see it, but there's definitely a difference between swapping a 3rd and a 4th versus just getting a 3rd. If we would have just gotten a 3rd, absolutely, home run. Considering we're going to go get another one, but it's not a 3rd round pick. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow knuckleheads out there, let us know what you think.
Thank That Ken is ridiculous. Let us know.
I know I'm not. I know if we were sitting at the bar, everybody would agree with me on this one.
Okay. All right. Well, moving on. What do you think of the trade? Apparently, you don't think we got a 3rd round pick for Sam. So go ahead.
No. Us upgrading our 4th to a 3rd and our 6th to a 5th are they're solid moves for considering we didn't have a future for him, right? The direction that they wanted to go. They went and got Mariota. They felt like they could do better with Mariota as a backup as opposed to Howell. And Mariota's been in the league longer, so for a mentor perspective, maybe they thought Mariota would be a better mentor behind the number 2 pick.
You can't have that kind of youth in the quarterback room. You got to have a veteran, right? So again, this is another indication that they're going to go and get a young quarterback, because you can't have Sam Howell. From a talent perspective, it would be great because I think he's better than Marcus Mariota. But from a development perspective, on your number 2 pick, you need a veteran, and Sam can't provide that type of knowledge to a rookie quarterback.
Right.
So what do you think in terms of people who were Sam supporters? We were too.
I definitely was.
Okay. We certainly were. But for Sam to quote unquote, we fail Sam, that the crowd that says we fail Sam, and I'm glad he's getting another shot. I wish him nothing but the best in Seattle, but we failed him in Washington, because everything that we're doing now is what we should have done for Sam. And so we kind of let Sam down. What's your thoughts on that narrative?
I don't necessarily disagree with it, but I'm going to go back to, and I was going to bring this up when we started talking more detail about some of the free agents. I know I liked that and just about anybody that is a Commanders fan likes that we addressed offensive line, right? Went and got a center and a guard, but we did that last year, right? The conversation was, if you run with Sam Howell, you got to go out and get these players. And right off the bat, if you remember last year's conversation about our free agents, right off the bat, we went and got 2 middle of the road players. And I said I was happy that we went.
Well, hang on. So you're talking Wiley and Gates.
Correct.
Okay.
And at the time I was like, I know we weren't going to going for the big name, high dollar players, but I was glad that we were aggressive, and they were like 2 of the first 3 or 4 offensive linemen that signed. And I was like, okay, we knew that we weren't going for the A players. We thought we were going for the B players, and we got the B players that we wanted first. With our scouting department and our GM and coaches, that was an utter failure.
Yes.
Right. So they tried last year exactly what they're doing this year for our future quarterback. And hopefully the decision makers were the difference. And we ended up coming up. I think if Sam Howell would have had a better offensive line, do I think he would have done better? Absolutely. Would he be good enough? Would he have had a good enough year that we would have, we wouldn't been at number 2. If we would have won just 2 or 3 more games, all of a sudden we're picking at number 8 or 9.
Okay.
But in the right circumstance, I think Howell can develop to be a decent quarterback. I'm not going to say a star by any means, but what did we do right last year from a coaching perspective? EB, he's not even in the NFL now, right? Ron Rivera was gone. Del Rio, he's not in the NFL now. So who was guiding this young guy who only had 1 start in Dallas before?
Yeah, I get it, man. And this is the part of the business that sucks. I can't imagine what it's like for Sam in this situation. But you hear people talk about it all the time, man. This business is ugly and it's rough and there's nothing like it, right? Um, so it's one of those deals, man. It's hard business, right?
Absolutely.
We drafted Sam, and immediately just changing of ownership and things. You think things are going to be good and better, and you're just going to work hard, and all of a sudden they go in, they go, "Thanks for your services," and we're moving you out, right?
Yep.
And I wish Sam nothing but the best. The guy we had nothing but good things to say about him over the course of the season. On our podcast, we were singing his praises. We talked about the poise, the calmness about him, the maturity. And at one point we thought, man, if this guy gets it together, he's going to be our guy. And
if our offensive line could just hold
yeah,
just a half a second tick further, to get receivers a chance to get open, type of thing. Yeah.
So I hope that he goes on and have, for those that know, you remember Chris Carter, right? Chris Carter was drafted by the Eagles.
Yep.
And he basically screwed up his opportunity in Philadelphia, but he got another shot in Minnesota, and he went on and became a legend and Hall of Famer. I hope that this be a situation where it may be a rude awakening, because you hear a lot of people say, man, I understand how this league works, but it's probably a little bit different until it slaps you in the face. And in this case, I hope that it's a situation where it propels Sam and he goes on to have a great career, man.
What a difference a year makes, right? He went from winning in Dallas to being named the starter, and then now he's flying flying all the way across country to Seattle. Not that Seattle's a bad place to live or visit. It's going to cost Dallas, or I say Dallas. DC is an expensive area too, but so that covers.
I wish you nothing but the best, man.
Yeah. But besides Sam Howell, like I said, we had 17 players, fairly even on offense and defense, probably more defensive players brought in overall. And I think, considering that we know right off the bat, we are going to, it's just a given now that we're going to be taking a quarterback. So there's a new player there. And with the release of Leno, whether it's through the draft or we still end up signing somebody free agent, we're going to end up getting a left tackle still somewhere. So there's two more players there.
Well, I think
thinking, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, given all of the free agents that we've signed, I made a post about it, that it was interesting that all these contracts were about 3 years, with the exception of a 1-year deal here and there. Austin Eckler got a 2-year deal. Zach Ertz got a 1-year deal. Crowder,
about half were 1-year deals. Yeah.
But the bigger contracts were only maxed out at 3 years.
Correct.
And with all of these players, 17 players that have been signed, we still have, Ken, $68 million in cap space. So even if they wanted to do something tomorrow or the next day,
right,
there's still a ton of money cap space wise that they still have to spend. So I like the fact that they didn't just become like that kid where you give him $20, man. You say, here you go buy yourself something. And he spends $19.90. Right. They didn't do that. They still went out and decided, hey, we're going to be strategic and have a plan on how we're going to approach free agency. And they've gone out and executed a hell of a plan and still got a lot of money to spend. They plugged a lot of holes. I think across the board, just about at every position, every what I'm going to call their biggest contract, which is probably your 3-year deals, they've essentially upgraded each spot from whatever the replacement was, with the exception of probably, well, hell, I'd even say tight end, but the tight end was a 1-year deal. Zach Ertz was a 1-year deal, but that's name only. But you went from not Bobby Wagner. You went from Cody Barton to you got Bobby Wagner,
right?
You got the kid from Frankie Luvu. I think it says Luvu.
Luvu, yeah,
Luvu,
from Carolina.
right? Out of Carolina, right? That's an upgrade, right? You go to center,
Well, yeah, you went and got Pittman from the Lions also.
Pittman from the Lions, right? The linebacker.
Correct.
You know, what role do they have for Jamin Davis? Is he part of this rotation? Is he part of this scheme, or is this a situation where they're saying, "Hey, son, you got to compete. We bring in some dog." Because I'm gonna tell you, man, a lot of people are real high on this Frankie Louvu guy, and he was one of the guys they gave the 3-year deal to. They upgrade. The upgrade at defensive end is probably upgrade over Chase and probably Tuhill and FL Bottle, right? Upgrade.
And they did re-sign Abada.
And they did re-sign Obata, but he's going to be a rotational guy.
Correct.
All right.
Coming off an injury. And I'm going to say I like him as a role player, but he may not make the team when it finally comes down to it because of his injuries.
He may not.
And age.
Yeah. Running back. To me, Austin Eckler, the gap may not be huge, but I'm going to say that's an upgrade over Antonio Gibson.
Absolutely.
Because one thing that I know, his age is a factor and a concern for a lot of people, but he's not asked to come here and be RB1. I don't think he will be. And then secondly, he excels in the third down area,
right,
and pass pro. I think that's what they wanted Antonio Gibson to do. But this guy excels at it.
Well, he's 28. He's it's not like he's 33 or 30, in his 30s.
The production just fell off a little bit. I mean, let's be honest about it.
But off a team that has struggled offensively, period.
And so he's going to come here and has familiarity with Anthony Lynn from coaching him years ago. Right. But he's going to set a standard, as with Zach Ertz and a lot of these guys, these veteran guys. But Austin Eckler is going to come in and provide pass pro, which is what a rookie quarterback is going to need. If you're going to be in on third down, coaches said all the time, you need to be able to block. You got to be able to pick up the blitz.
Right.
Austin Eckler knows how to do that, and he does it at a very high level.
How to read it to get open. Even if you go out to the flat, you cut into the left, you cut into the right, you finding that hole in the zone. But yes.
And listening to the guys that watch a lot more film than I do, Cliff Kingsbury offense, love to have the little running back out in the flat, right?
Yeah.
Austin Eckler does pretty well at catching the ball on third downs, getting out there. So upgrade. So they may not have been the home run swings, what some fans wanted, and probably what some of the national media loves to kind of put out for teams that make these big splash moves.
Right.
But man, these are some solid pickups. And it is very clear they had a plan, man, and they are executing it. I love it. I love it.
I think when you look at this year's free agents, what I always call difference makers, there wasn't a lot of difference makers available. Your big home run wide receivers, who was out there? Besides Saquon Barkley, there's some solid running backs out there, but there was nobody out there really that I would consider a home run hitter. Again, you take Eckler and Gibson and Mixon and who else? I mean, there's 3 or 4 others that were out there. You might Derrick like Henry. One over another. What's that?
Derrick Henry.
Yep. But he's not the Derrick Henry of 4 or 5 years ago, right? I'm not trying to say he's washed up. Don't throw that on me. But he's not the same running back he was 4 years ago when he was steamrolling. And like I said, you can grade these players out, but there wasn't these difference makers, right? And so with that being said, Washington went and got what I would call a core team with this free agency. Bobby Wagner, he's not the linebacker he was 4 or 5 years ago, where he was wrecking stuff, right? He's still going to do a great job. And I think besides his play on the field, his how he prepares for a game, how he sets people up, how he teaches the Jamin Davis, the players that still go at 100 miles an hour, even though Bobby Wagner's maybe down to 92 miles an hour. He's going to show you how to play ball, right? You want those people around. Clearly, they've made, and I said that they would do this because if you just watch everywhere that Dan Quinn goes, his linebackers are key to the defense, right?
Okay.
In Seattle, Atlanta, Dallas, and look here, first year, all of a sudden you got Bobby Wagner, Chin, and Pittman to go along with Jamin Davis. It's going to be a whole new
and Luvu
dynamic. We're going to see linebackers.
Get Luvu.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. But you're not going to. Well, I think I said Chin by accident as a safety.
But he plays in the box, though. He can play in the box.
Yeah, but I think what you're going to see is you're going to see these linebackers not making plays at the second level. They're going to be making plays, at the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage, some sacks here or there. A more aggressive linebackers to where I think how Washington and Del Rio played them. They let the defensive line be the aggressive part, and the linebackers were more
Clean
of the hold my position perspective. You're going to see something different on how Dan Quinn plays his defense and runs his defenses.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And again, it goes back to the type of guys that they picked up in free agency is geared towards that. Luvu is a blitzing linebacker. There's already been some talk about moving Jamin Davis to the line of scrimmage and allow him to blitz. Again, Bobby Wagner is not going to be a blitzing linebacker, but the level of the amount of knowledge and leadership that he's going to bring, and guys like Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler are all veterans that are played at a high level, going to be able to set the standard and affect the culture.
Right.
Culture from the perspective of this is what you need in your locker room. This is how you go to work. And this is how you get ready for games and do what you need to do. We love the fact that we had a lot of youth in Washington, but I think we underestimated the lack of leadership that we had in that locker room. Yeah, Deron Payne, he's a veteran and he's a leader, but he's a leader in a different kind of way.
Jonathan Allen. Yeah.
Jonathan Allen is a leader, but I think his way of leadership probably got a little old, probably got stale a little bit. So there wasn't a whole lot of those wild and crazy leaders on the team. You go back to the Swearinger days and a little bit of the Bobby McCain days, and those were probably your real vocal leaders. But you need some of those guys,
right?
And so I think the leadership and the quality of guys that they brought in to kind of set that tone is amazing to me. And listen, I'm not naive to think that Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner is going to come here and then make the Pro Bowl next year.
Right.
Nah. But there are times that you still need that veteran leadership that can teach the young guys how to go about the business.
Sure.
And we haven't had this level of, we've had veterans, but we've not had this level and quality of veterans in our locker room in a very long time, because guys like this would never come to Washington. That's the reality of it. Bobby Wagner's not coming on a 1-year deal under the old regime. He's just not going to do it. He'll go to Pittsburgh.
Right.
Hell, he might have even came to Dallas. But Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, and Austin Eckler are not in Washington under the old regime. No. And these are the kinds of guys that can set the foundation for your franchise.
So we and we can come back to it, but we've talked about, a handful of players that we've brought in. What I would call, I'm going to call it 5, but it's really 4.5. Washington players that Washington has not exercised to give them a contract, at least not at this point. Some have already signed elsewhere, but Antonio Gibson went to the Patriots. Curtis Samuel just signed today with the Bills. Fuller signed with Miami. Everybody a couple years ago was happy with Cam Curl, and Cam can't get a contract. And really, Curtis Samuel and Fuller, they didn't get a contract until today. So you're really talking about day 4, right? The first 3 days are the hot days. Day 1, day 2, day 3 has you worrying. Day 4, you finally got a contract for those guys. Cam Curl doesn't have a contract, and I said kind of here there. Chase Young doesn't have a contract either.
He's talking to Carolina, man. That's how bad it is.
What's that?
Chase Young is talking to Carolina. That's how bad it is.
Oh yeah. And I think Chase and Cam potentially set their bar too high. They probably had some offers, and it wasn't where their ego or bad agent told them what the market was going to be, and so they'll sign short-term contracts or lower dollar or combination of the two.
Well, with Jeremy Chinn being signed safety, they brought back Jeremy Reeves, who is primarily a special teams guy,
right.
But he's a depth at safety. And then you got Quan Martin, you got Forrest coming back.
Yep.
Pretty much, and then you got Percy Butler.
Right.
That's a pretty crowded safety room. So regardless of what contract Cam Curl ends up accepting, it's not going to be in Washington. He's not coming. I think the door is closed on that. And whatever contract he gets, I'm willing to bet that if Washington had offered him that in the beginning, if he had taken the contract in the beginning, he would be in Washington. But because he overplayed his hand, he's going to end up accepting a deal somewhere else. And he'll be like, fine. I mean, he's not a terrible player,
right?
But he won't end up getting the payday that I think he was looking for.
Well, he was a 7th round pick, so he hasn't gotten that payday, right? If he was a 1st or 2nd rounder and he had gotten paid, and now he's trying to get paid again, I'm only talking NFL money, right? I'm not talking common person money, because the 53rd guy making the least amount of salary is making a hell of a salary.
Right.
But Cam Curl's looking to cash in, and I understand it. He may have just overreached a little bit on his value.
Well, what also hurt him was the release of a flood of safeties in the market days before the tampering period started, right?
Yep.
He was one of a few safeties out there, and then all of a sudden teams just started releasing guys, and guys who had better resumes than Cam Curl started getting released. And all of a sudden now his value, the market was saturated, and his value just went down, man. And that was very bad and unfortunate timing for him.
Yeah, and they would talk about that even. I was listening to the NFL radio as I was traveling during our spring break here, and they were talking about this even before free agency had hit, that they were predicting that how running backs have, over the last few years, have taken a hit in the market. This year was going to be the year for safeties because so many were available. The value of where the NFL puts them isn't as high, or they wouldn't have released as many. Right. And so the dollar amount that teams are willing to pay for safeties. But to me, from the 5 that I mentioned, Gibson, Samuel, Fuller, Cam Curl, and Young, even though Young wasn't here, he was just here at the beginning of the year. To me, Fuller and Samuel are the 2 biggest hits out of those, which is wide receiver and cornerback. Oh, and those are the 2 positions. When I mentioned the 17 players we've signed, there hasn't been a single wide receiver. Well, I guess you could call Jamison Crowder, bringing him back, but he's not he's a 4th wide receiver. He's not a 3rd wide receiver. And then no cornerback. We haven't signed a cornerback or a wide receiver of name. So it'd be interesting to see how they plug those holes with whoever's out there.
Well, what is interesting when you look at the amount of free agents we had on the team, and I can't remember if we had 27 total free agents, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But of the free agents that we had on our team, only 3 have returned, have been given contracts and signed, I should say. And that is Jamison Crowder, wide receiver, but again, he's primarily your special teams guy. Jeremy Reeves, safety, he's primarily your special teams guy. So they signed 2 special teams guy, and then you got F.A. Abato, who's coming off of off an injury.
Right.
But he's a defensive end who will be your rotation guy. But they've not signed anybody else. Everyone else has been from the outside. So this team is going to look drastically different
Yes.
as this season started. And I'm okay with that. I think it's a great thing. But to your point about the receiver and the corner, it says something about the corners that they have, obviously, that they like, because they haven't addressed it there. The wide receivers, I think they're going to address wide receiver in the draft. And I think they will also address left tackle in the draft. Corner, I think there's still a couple of corners out there. But, we talked about coaching and how coaching fails Sam. Perhaps coaching is going to affect Emmanuel Forbes and Benjamin St-Juste, and they will look different this year. But clearly, since they're not running out and signing cornerbacks, telling me that they're either going to hit it hard in the draft, or they're going to be able, or they're comfortable with what they have thus far, because they didn't sign Fuller, and I think they'll bring somebody in, but I guess they're going to run with those guys, man, Juice and Forbes.
Yeah, I think they will. To your point, I think they will still bring people in. But going in, they knew or had a strong suspicion that they weren't going to re-sign either one of those guys. And ultimately, both of those guys signed for $8 million a year. Fuller was a 2-year contract with Miami. Samuel was a 3-year contract with the Bills, both of them roughly $8 million a year. And Washington felt like they weren't of value, especially at cornerback, a starting cornerback with as much play that he's had, that you don't think that Fuller's worth $8 million. A little bit of a head scratcher.
Well, not if you think you can get the same production out of him, because he's an older guy, and
he's 28 or 29. I think 29.
He's got some miles on it. But the thing about it is, I don't know, is Fuller a better zone corner or man cover corner? And they talked about that. And so I don't know whether or not that Fuller, even if he's still productive, which is what you're getting at, maybe he just doesn't fit the way they're going to play defense.
Fair enough.
And maybe they're going to play a lot of man because of the blitz that they do. And maybe he's a better corner, zone corner, for example. Maybe he just plays better in the zone. And so the man side of it, he's not as great. And if they're going to be blitzing off the corners with their linebackers and all that kind of stuff, and we need you to be able to cover that guy, and maybe Fuller plays off too much, and he's just not a good man corner. And it's not that he can't be productive for someone else. It's just he doesn't fit what we're going to try to do here.
Yeah.
And so they're going to go get somebody. There's been talks about them bringing one of the corners from the Dallas, I think Jordan Lewis or somebody, I think, or at least he played for the Cowboys. And with that, let me address this, because I see it on social media. Everyone talking about, not everyone, Cowboy fans out there talking about how we took their coaches, and now they're talking about how we're taking all their players. And I'm like, look, man, first of all, we took 3 players. That's not all your players. And of the 3 that we took, only 1 was a starter.
Right.
Okay. So I don't want to hear that. So they got this thing out there. They're calling us the Calmanders. Right. And I'm like, we didn't do anything different than that happens every year, where when a coach goes to another team, he takes some coaches with him. And when that coach goes to that team, he takes players with him. It happens across the league.
Right.
And I reminded a coworker of mine today. He knows who he is if he's listening. When Bill Parcells came here, he for damn sure brought a lot of players that had played for him on other teams. It happens every year.
Right.
When your coach goes, he takes certain players. And so the fact that we're taking all their players, We took 3, and only one's a starter. Stop it.
I had a conversation with several Cowboy fans and made a prediction to them that Mike McCarthy has had some success, but he's also had, by Cowboy standards and Jerry Jones standards, had some failures and been on the hot seat. There was a question on whether he was even going to come back this year after the shellacking that they got the first game playoff game against Green Bay, right? And I told the guys, I said, if not 1 year, within 2 years, Cowboy fans are going to look back and say, we let the wrong guy go. We should have let McCarthy go and kept Dan Quinn, but they didn't. Dan Quinn is in Washington. Washington made the right move with their GM, coach, offensive, defensive coordinators, and you'll. That's my bold prediction for the day. So,
man, Ken.
we don't get to use that sound drop very often, do we, man? I had to look over and see if it was still there.
I see you dropping dimes, putting a little knowledge on these guys. I see you, Ken. All right,
but
okay.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, to your point, and it's all familiarity. So really, what you end up, everybody wants to do is start connecting these dots all the time, right? It's did we get somebody from San Francisco because of Adam Peters? Oh, we got somebody from San Francisco,
which we did.
Kingsbury was at Arizona. Did we get somebody from Arizona? Damn,
we did.
I mean, you can go along the way with these connections, and it happens everywhere all the time.
Bobby Wagner was connected to Dan Quinn and Ken Norton, the linebacker coach. Austin Eckler connected to Anthony Lynn. Cleveland Farrell came from San Francisco, obviously familiar with Adam Peters. I think Anthony Pittman came from Detroit. Guess what? There's a connection with the assistant GM that came from Detroit. I mean, so it happens. Every team, everybody.
Another one, F.A. Obata, right? He hurt his knee week 2 or 3. Then he breaks his leg, right? Mm-hmm. Later in the season. And in the hospital, lowest of lows, 2 people reach out to contact him. Number 1 was Ron Rivera. No other coaches, no GM, nobody else. The other person had coached him long ago, Dan Quinn. So now he's available. Who does he? I would love to come back and be with Dan Quinn. You again, I know we've already covered this. You don't hear a bad thing about Dan Quinn in the NFL.
And I said this before when we was talking about when they was hiring this coaching staff. It's the thing that is going to get lost in this that people got to understand is the connection that all of these coaches, all these guys who were coaches and coordinators before, has connections to players and teams, man. I'm telling you, the Bobby Wagners, the Austin Ecklers, the Zach Ertz are not here if it's not for some of these coaches on the staff, man. I'm telling you.
Right.
I believe it. I believe it wholeheartedly. So, hey, some people are worried about us, and some people are like, hey, man, it's the same old Washington. But I beg to differ, sir. I beg to differ.
Well, I think what you're going to end up, what we all have to be aware of is some of these players, I hate to go back to last year, but kind of like last year, some of the players we brought in also, all the players that we signed this year, like last year, were not necessarily full-time starters, but they produced when they played, and Washington, I'll just say Adam Peters and crew, feels like these people can step up. It was swing and miss last year at offensive line, the center. But this year we're doing the same thing with the guard from Kansas City. He wasn't a starter. Then there was an injury, and he was a starter the last 3 or 4 games and through the playoffs. Played well. That I think he can step up and be a full-time starter here in Washington. So we'll see. There's, like I said, there's a handful of players like this, and
But let me just say this, Ken. I'm looking at the list here. Many of these guys last year that they brought in that we knew based on their contracts were going to be brought in to start had a lot of question marks by most people. A lot of people were shocked about Andrew Wiley. Right? They said they talked about his stats, his ratings, his PFF, and all this kind of stuff in Kansas City. But, bringing here, I guess we thought things would be different. Nick Gates. There was questions about Nick Gates coming from New York. He was coming off his injury, but there were some concerns about him playing center. He doesn't always play center, but we brought him here to be a center. Right? What's his name? Tyler Biadasz. The guy played well. Made the Pro Bowl the year before. Right? Who else I'm thinking? Who else that we brought in to be a starter outside of Tyler Biadasz? Cody Barton. There was questions about him in Seattle when we brought him. But Dorrance Armstrong this year, coming from Dallas to be a starter. The only question you have is how will he perform when he's getting all the snaps and teams are going to be double teaming him or running backs chipping him as he's running out in the flat? Can he overcome when teams are game planning? But a lot of the players that we're bringing in to be what you would consider your starter guys don't quite have all the question marks that a lot of free agents we brought in last year had. Frankie Louvu, everybody's talking about, man, this kid. I think Carolina wanted to keep him.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I think Jeremy Chin was probably a little bit of a cap casualty guy.
Right.
But you look at guys like Dante Fowler, rotation guy. Cleveland Farrell was a starter opposite of Nick Bosa in San Francisco until he got hurt. That's how Chase Young got on the field. Right. But prior to that, he was playing well. And he's going to come in and probably play opposite. So we don't quite have the same amount of question marks around the guys that you can project to be your starters this year. Doesn't mean that they're going to make the Pro Bowl, and doesn't mean that what your concern is, meaning they're not going to live up to expectations, is not going to happen. But I feel a little bit better because they don't have all the question marks this year as compared to last year.
Yeah, I think, we all going into this, unless it's something just horrible or something where we feel like we just totally overpaid for somebody, we tend to have positive thoughts about it. All the guys coming on our team, man, they're the guys to get. Every guy that we released, man, yeah, he wasn't going to make it. He wasn't going to do it, right? It's just the logic and reasoning that we all do as fans. But if we would have re-signed Gibson, there'd be a lot of people, man. It's a good thing we re-signed him. That was good. He's a core commander. You got to keep him. But time will tell. I'll say, like I said, the one player that kind of hurts me, and it was Curtis Samuel. I didn't think he was going to be coming back, but I got a feeling in Buffalo, you're going to see him on some Sunday night highlights on ESPN, doing things that he didn't do here in Washington.
Well, we have a history of not using players to their best potential. I suspect it's going to be a little bit different with this regime because so far they've done everything they said they were going to do.
Right.
From the owner to hiring the GM and the way his approach was going to be, he did it. From the GM and their approach to hiring the head coach and what they said they were going to do, they did it. And then when the GM and head coach had their press conference, they talked about how they were going to attack free agency and build through the draft and all that. They're doing exactly what they said. So one of the things they talk about is finding out what guys do best and maximizing that and put players in a position, coach them up and do all these things. They're going to do it. So the fact that they felt like not bringing Curtis Samuel back on an $8 million a year contract says something to me. Because I've always said until they do something or it doesn't work out for me, I'm going to give them a pass and roll with whatever they're going to do. So we have 6 picks in the top 100
Correct.
Going into this draft. I think some moves are going to be made. And does that mean that they're going to now get left tackles? Or are they going to trade it because this is a deep draft with wide receivers? Are they going to target one of these rookies?
Tackles as well, from
And
my
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So the fact that maybe there's a plan in the draft for a wide receiver, and that's why we don't want to pay $8 million to a guy like Curtis Samuel, because if we're going to get a guy in the second round who could potentially replace, because as I talked about on the other podcast that I did here, I said Terry McLaurin, as much as we love Terry's approaching 30. So you got to have the pipeline.
Right.
With somebody coming behind him. So if they use a second round pick on a wide receiver and next year he's our third option, that's okay. Because at some point they're not going to bring Terry back.
Right.
And now all of a sudden you got Jahan Dotson and whoever this kid is that they got in the second round. Right? So maybe that's why Curtis wasn't in the long-term plans. And so I don't know what the reason was. I'm with you. I was a little surprised that he wasn't brought back, but if he's not part of the long-term plan, I'm gonna roll with it, man. I'm gonna roll with it, Ken.
No, it's a balancing act, right? You can't. There's good players that you know are good that sometimes you have to let go because of where you are in your building or rebuilding process.
Recalibrating, Ken. We're recalibrating.
Man, it's one hell of a calibration when you're bringing in 17. Not counting draft picks, and the new quarterback and everything else.
Recalibrate, baby.
You use whatever synonym that you want.
We're recalibrating, man. We're not rebuilding. We got to fill the roster, Ken. We don't have all these players in the contract. We got to sign people. We're recalibrating, baby.
Okay.
Give it to me. We're recalibrating. But let me ask you this: of all the people that have been brought in thus far, which one excites you the most? Which one you like the most? However you want to say it.
I think for this first year with Dan Quinn, I think it's Bobby Wagner. I just think, and I think there's going to be people that are going to maybe have a bigger impact that you see on the field, but I think what Bobby Wagner brings on the field, off the field, attitude, approach, how he's going to help the rookies that come in to see how everything is done. I mean, he's just a guy that has done it every single year. And I look at him, just think of the last few years, maybe not the last year, but the last few years that London Fletcher was around. What did he have the speed that he, to cover, all these super fast tight ends like he did when he was 25, 26? No, he doesn't. That's probably the same for Bobby Wagner as well. You don't want Bobby Wagner running with tight ends for very long, but what you're expecting him to do to read defenses, call out the defenses, plug the holes, cover somebody until you hand off to a safety or zone or however you're running it. He's going to understand the defense, call it, and make it run at middle linebacker. So I think he's going to have the biggest impact.
Okay.
How about yourself?
Going to surprise you. I have two players, but I'm gonna pick from the two. The two that I have that I like the most is Frankie Louvu.
That's good pick.
Or Tyler Biadasz. But I'm gonna go with Tyler because I think Tyler's gonna have is going to have a great impact because I think he's gonna secure the interior of the line.
He's center for those that don't know who Tyler is.
He's a starter.
Right.
He's a starting center. He has been a center for the past few years. He's going to help the rookie quarterback with the coverage and the protection. He's going to be his best friend. Then to the right guard, you got Sam Cosmi. And then to the left guard, they got the guy from Kansas City. But there's still a chance that they can even, because with that guy, he got a 3-year, $16 million deal.
Right.
They signed, I think, Nick Gates to a 2 or 3 year deal. So they can let this guy go if they need to, if he doesn't work out. But based on what I'm hearing, he's nasty. the left guard, Nick Allegretti. So now we've secured what the interior of the offensive line. And so now between Wiley and getting the left tackle, but Tyler Biadasz, to me, I'm hoping and expecting that he's going to fortify the offensive line and get those guys going. And I'm excited about what that's going to do, because that's going to help, I believe, the rookie quarterback.
Yeah,
Frankie's going to be probably more excited because he's going to make more plays.
Yeah, I think Frankie would have been my number 2 pick behind Bobby Wagner. But I hope you're right. I hope Tyler has as big of an impact as what you're hopeful for.
He won't show up in the stats. That's the problem.
Well, I think what the stats will be that the offensive line is doing good protection and having an offense that runs smoothly, right? That doesn't mean they're going to be a powerhouse, but you're not going to have, blown, if I say coverage, blown offensive line assignments where somebody just comes rolling in and you're like, you didn't block anybody to your left, you didn't block anybody to your right, and somebody just came right by. That's something we've seen the last year or two, unfortunately, from time to time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It looked like somebody just standing there posing for a pitcher as ends and tackles and linebackers go blowing by. So yeah, I'm crossing my fingers that Tyler has the success that you're pointing out there.
He's gonna represent, Ken.
I like
Cal
it.
Manders. Cal Manders.
I don't want to ever hear you say that again. All right. That's the last time we hear that.
We're gonna edit that out, man.
Yeah, well, beep it out,
That's the last time.
but we're not done, right? I mean, I know we're wrapping it up here. We've got, to your point, you mentioned 6 of the top 100. It'd be nice if we got 4 out of 6 starters. Is that asking too much?
Nah. It's going to happen. It's going to happen again.
You don't think so?
No, it's going to happen.
Okay.
Brother.
I was just saying, is that asking too much? 4 out of 6 being starters. I mean, figure wide receiver will be, if they pick up, say, the second round to tackle, he's probably going to be a starter.
I think they're going to go tackle in second round.
I think so too. I mean,
or they're going to trade back into the first round and get one, but they're going to go tackle. It's going to be quarterback tackle.
That is probably a majority of our guesses. And honestly, just looking at our roster right now, even though we've done all these, we need another tight end, right? Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz may not make the team.
Oh, he's gonna make the team.
Okay, he'll make the team because the contract isn't that big, but he might not be that impactful player that people, when they hear Zach Ertz, because he hasn't been that player in a year or two.
I will give you that.
And that's been because of injuries. To be fair, that's because of injuries. But we'll see what happens.
I give you that his production is what we could probably all speculate on, but he will make the team. A guy that has his own press conference, Ken, makes the team. He makes the team.
He had a press conference because there's nothing else going on, right? He was a free agent that was signed before free agency started.
No, he just had it this week. He just had it the other day.
No, he had his press conference, but he signed before free agency because he was not on a team because of the way he was released mid-season last year.
That's fine. But guys that may not make the team don't get their own individual press conference. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, make the team, don't make the team.
He may only get 10 catches this year.
Right? Be a player that we notice an improvement over last year. Let's put it that way.
I hope he gets some production out of him, but even if he get 10 catches, he's gonna make the team.
10 catches isn't going to cut it for Knucklehead Ken. Let me just go right there.
I would agree with that. I would agree. But go ahead and get your Zach Ertz jersey.
Oh, go get that now.
Team. He's going to be on the team.
How long will it take for you to buy a?
I'm not buying it. I don't even know what you're going to say, but I'm not buying it.
The starting quarterback jersey.
I'm not buying it.
How many are you going to see opening day at the bar? How many? Can you make a prediction on that?
How many quarterback jerseys?
Yeah, whoever the starting quarterback,
There'll
whether
be a
it's
few. There'll be a few.
whether it's May or
Williams
Daniels.
or
Yeah.
Daniels. There'll be some because people always fall for that. I'm not buying no damn jersey.
All right.
Listen, I said I was not buying any more merch, and I stand by that. However, I'm gonna edit my own statement here. The only
Go ahead.
if I do buy something,
Yeah.
it would probably be a hat. That's about it.
Hat.
I'm
Okay.
not buying pullovers and all that kind of stuff. I might buy a hat because every year
Now,
they come out with a new sideline hat,
right.
and I might buy a new sideline hat. But that's Best Buy. That may cost me
And out of all the gear that you have, shirts, hats, shoes, jerseys, you already have more hats than anything else. Am I correct?
Because it's easy to buy. Right? I mean, if you don't wear it, you don't wear it. I mean, it's depending when you buy, it could be $20 or it can be $30. But and you're right, I have a ton of hats. And in fact, I'm representing. See, I'm wearing
yeah.
St. Patrick.
For those listening on the podcast, he has his green, believe it or not, green Washington Redskins hat. It's all green with the white Redskins logo for St. Patrick's Day.
It's money, y'all. So if you're streaming, I need you to tune in this YouTube channel and check out this green throwback Washington Redskins.
The colors are not off. I mean, they're off, but they're not off, right?
Well, I mean, St. Patrick's. It's green. It's Irish. You got an Irish Indian.
Yeah, you are. I mean, you are about as Irish as it comes, So I can appreciate you. Have your green hat, your green beer, and your kilt, and you go have a good time on St. Patrick's Day, my man.
You went too far.
Oh, with the green beer, with the green beer.
It's just a green hat. The beer and the kilt. Not having it.
What would it take, Reg? What's the cost to get you in a kilt on St. Patrick's Day at a bar? What, $100 do it?
100 million. I'm not wearing no kilt. Are you crazy?
You gotta be festive. If you got the hat, you might as well go with the kilt.
I wish no. Okay. That's when you hit the one because not happening.
Hold on. It talks. It talks, Reg. We all know that.
If you got that Kirk Cousin money, I might do it.
All right. I just trying to gauge.
Right, man.
People were wondering out there.
We're getting off track here. So
yeah, you got anything else you need to cover, Reg?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just people, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging in with us. Like, subscribe, share our podcast, man. Help us continue to grow this thing. We enjoy doing it. We like bringing it to you. So that's really all I got.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We'll be more coverage as we get closer to the draft. Until next time, peace out, knuckleheads.
Peace out. Cal Manders.